I think those people who've been at the center in person have had a chance to meet Alyssa. She works for the Walpole Natick VNA. She provided our blood pressure and wellness clinic that we had, and was available to help us with all sorts of health-related issues. She's been very involved since COVID hit with the MAVEN project in tracking, and I'm sure that she can provide some really helpful information today about COVID, MAVEN, just community wellness, and we've missed her, so it's good to see her face again.
Good to see everybody. Hi. I don't know how to see everybody. I just see Carrie here. Hold on. All right. Well, I can start. So I have been doing a lot of work. So right now I'm covering my normal jurisdiction, which is Dover, Sherborne, Medfield, Norfolk, and then I've also, since January, actually been doing Framingham as well. So a pretty wide variety of communities. And basically, I think probably since February, it's kind of just been hit the ground and run. We've just been crazy busy. We've had a little bit of a lull, but definitely seen probably in the past 10 days a bit of an uptick in cases, just the way that the state is classifying cases, not necessarily confirmed cases, but just the way that they're, the testing has increased. So now with the antibody testing, we still have to interview those cases. So depending on the way that the test results that we receive with the antibody testing, we still have to go out and interview the cases and see if they've been symptomatic. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I never would have expected something like this to happen. When I entered into public health, I don't think anybody expected this. Does anybody have any questions?
Alyssa, okay. Are you doing any home visits? I'm wondering. Are you doing that yet?
So with my position, I only really have to do that if I can't get in touch with a patient. So if I have a confirmed case and I have a certain amount of time to get in touch with a confirmed case within 72 hours of receiving that lab. If I cannot, then I do that. I have to go out. But usually with my position anyway, I don't necessarily do home visits unless it's within, the communicable disease follow-up.
I see. Thanks.
And you've been working largely with the MAVEN project. They kind of pulled you off all other duties, and you've been really working just on COVID.
Yeah, and it's been, so today I am with my family. But this has been I've been doing probably on average since the beginning of March. On average, it's probably been at between 60 and 80 hours a week.
Wow.
I mean, it's been absolutely, it's nuts. And again, I think it's really been an eye-opening experience. It's been hard not to internalize everything because, covering a town like Dover and Sherborne, and then also covering Framingham, it's a really wide variety of socioeconomic classes, and seeing the health disparities, it's been really disheartening, really, really tough. The problems that some of these families are facing, it's really just, it's so sad. It's so sad, you know, some of these families, you know, when you have like 12 people living in a home together, you can't not expect the virus to spread through the home. And, you know, then if no one can leave the house, how you have to, you know, question how can they get food. So then you have to provide resources for that. And then, you know, if you question them further, you find out that they don't have health insurance. So then when, you know, grandma gets really sick, they don't want to take her to the hospital because they don't have health insurance. They don't have a way to cover the cost. So then you have to try to figure out, well, how can we get grandma health insurance? Well, wait a second, grandma could possibly be undocumented. So it's just, you know, it's really, really sad what's happening. And, you know, I mean, one case can turn into hours and hours of work.
How many people from your organization are doing the same work that you're doing?
So I have one other person helping me at Walpole WAVNA, working alongside with me. We've been able to tackle Medfield, Norfolk, Dover, and Sherborne together. But then in Framingham, there are 24 nurses.
Wow.
In Framingham. And so actually, when I started in Framingham, I was actually covering for the chief public health nurse. I think I told you, Carrie.
Yeah.
She went on medical leave. And, you know, I mean, the VNA was like, oh, yeah, we'll take it. It's fine. No big deal. And then I remember this started to happen. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And, you know, she came back. I think it was probably like the end of March. And I was like, thank goodness. and then we kind of got this whole team working there now. So it's been much better. But yeah, at the VNA, it's myself and one other nurse that I delegate to that nurse. And then, you know, in Framingham, we have a whole team.
Do you have any advice for, you know, seniors who are still in this vulnerable age category for, you know, we're supposed to enter phase 3 on Monday. I think the governor spoke earlier today that they are going to move ahead with going to a phase 3. I didn't see any, I haven't reviewed it yet, so I haven't seen any specific recommendations yet regarding our friends who are 65 and older. But as you're out there in the community, are there any really important things that people really need to still make sure they're doing, aside from wearing a mask and hand washing? Are there places that you would still avoid going?
So if it was my grandmother, I love my people from my clinics that I can't see anymore, that I haven't seen in so long. I would definitely tell people to stay away from restaurants right now. I wouldn't recommend going out to dinner. That's my opinion. I think maybe hold off a little bit longer on going out to eat. You know, takeout would be one thing, but I wouldn't do a sit-down restaurant right now. This, you know, I think the governor is doing a fabulous job. I think that he is feeling pressure from both DPH, but I also think he's feeling pressure to open up the state. And I think that that's a really tough balance. So my best advice would be to continue to err on the side of caution. I think our numbers in Massachusetts are good for now, but if we look at the rest of the country, it's not looking so good. So I think that we just really, everybody needs to err on the side of caution, continue to hand wash, continue please to take this seriously and social distance and use a mask.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else on this call have questions? Alyssa's here on the front lines and really good information for them to have. And I just can't, I think I speak for everyone when I say thanks for what you've been doing. I know you've been working really hard. It's because of all of the yous out there that we're able to contact trace and try and contain this. So thank you for all the time you've given.
Alyssa, I have another
ahead.
question. Thanks. And I, again, thank you. I echo what Carrie says. Thank you for all the work you've been doing. We miss you at the center. You know, being on the front lines, and you mentioned encouraging someone to go to the hospital who was hesitant for a variety of reasons. What are you seeing in terms of severity and need to go to the hospital with your clients who are sick with this? Are they being managed at home okay? You know, is there certain, you know, are you seeing people going to the hospital if they just have secondary conditions? What's your take on that?
Quite honestly, I think it's kind of been all over the place. I hate to say that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had patients who have gone into the hospital who knew that they were positive for COVID, and, you know, they had like a pulse oximeter at their house. And actually, one of my communities, we implemented a program where, depending on my assessment of the patient, I would drop off a pulse oximeter and teach them how to use that. And then, you know, I would touch base with them, and then depending on what I thought, I would say, okay, you know, I think you need to contact your provider and have further evaluation. So one of my cases went into, we talked with the provider, and we decided that they should probably go to the hospital to a respiratory clinic. And they ended up being admitted because they went into AFib. And we're not sure if it was secondary to COVID, because now we're realizing that the virus affects other body systems. So, you know, I mean, other patients who don't have or didn't have any history of comorbidities end up in the ICU. And it's just, and it could be a young patient. Had patients who I thought, okay, this person is going to end up really, really sick, be completely fine. So to answer your question, it's really, like, it's all over the place. It's kind of hit or miss.
My question is related to the temporary closing of Norwood Hospital, and how has that, or is it impacting the VNA's practice in a big way, in an expected way, or in any way?
I can't really answer that. I'm not really sure, because again, I've just been doing a lot of the communicable disease follow-up.
Right.
I do know that patients were being brought down stairwells and transferred to, you know, other steward hospitals, but I'm not really sure how it's impacted the VNA. I'm sorry, can't answer that.
Well, I do know that they don't expect it to open for 6 to 8 weeks anyway, and that yesterday I was in the UPS store, and we ran into the Board of Health lady from Norwood. And she said, unfortunately, with all the stuff that happened in the basement, where all the electronics and, you know, operational center was, some of the wires in the walls and everything, it's just a monumental task. And I just thought, oh my God. And I feel so bad for the the nurses, all the employees there, because now they don't have jobs. You know, my neighbor went to work in the morning after and they had called her in the middle of the night and she hadn't gotten the phone call, but she got there and she was told to go home, that the hospital's temporarily closed. And it was quite a shock to her. So I just do feel badly for all the residents that rely.
I did see a couple of pictures of the inside of the hospital on television, and it really looked destroyed. And they may have been basement pictures, I don't know. But there's quite a bit of damage. No, it was hit very, very hard. And they say
And
they're
they were basement pictures. They were the basement of the hospital where the cafeteria was, and that the entire LaRusso building was just badly damaged.
I
We
think they must
certainly
have,
don't want to be down a hospital during this time when
No,
hospitals
no.
are so needed. So
Yeah.
it's concerning.
But the good news is they did say on the news that because some people haven't got the message, that they have stationed a ambulance there 24/7 in case somebody with a really emergency shows up and they need to be transported. And it did happen the other day. Someone showed up, she had, I don't know, whatever she had, but they did transport her to another hospital. And I think they're going to Attleboro, they're going to maybe Brockton and Faulkner Hospital, and also Newton Wellesley. So I know those hospitals are working with them.
Our fire chief in Canton, when I was on here Tuesday, and here was a Canton group, and the fire chief had said that most of the patients they had taken to the Brockton Hospital because the Brockton Hospital is the closest. But if the Brockton Hospital fills up, then they have to take them to other hospitals.
It's not that it's closer. I think it's a Steward hospital. That's why.
Right. That's right.
Right.
We certainly have other closer community options. There's other hospitals, but if they're patients that are presenting that have steward physicians, they're trying to keep them within the network. That's right, Linda.
Exactly.
Now, what do you mean by a steward? I don't understand that.
It's like partners, you know, Brigham and Women's, Mass General, they're the partners group. The steward group is those hospitals that you're mentioning, Good Samaritan, Norwood Hospital, at the one in in Attleboro. Sturdy. Thank you.
I didn't understand how the second and third floor could get flooded, nor did our fire chief understand that either, because, you know, I can understand the bottom floor being flooded out from the streets. And the only way that the second and third floor could possibly flood was that there had to be a problem with the pipes within the hospital in order for the second and third floor to flood out too.
It just happened so fast.
Yeah.
One minute there was no rain, and the next minute they were just completely overwhelmed by water, and they certainly were kind of the hot spot of that pop-up storm that we had. And it's a big storm that came through that day.
They were showing on the news last night, even still around the hospital, that you almost have to use a boat to get into the hospital because there's so much water there.
Still so much water.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest problem was that the electrical system was all knocked out, and they can't operate a hospital without electricity. Even generators wouldn't work in that situation. So that's why they had to transport everybody out of there.
crazy.
Yeah.
Can I ask how everybody is doing? I know that this has been a really hard time for everybody to be isolated. How's everybody doing?
I think some of us are having,
Emotionally.
post-traumatic stress. I'm still in that mode. You know, it just,
Yeah.
but I do feel bad for people that are more alone than I am. I'm certainly not alone. And, you know, it's just that I worry about those people.
Keep in mind though, Linda, you can be lonely even when you're not alone. So
Yeah, I know.
there's people who have people around, but they're still feeling lonely,
Yeah.
even though they've got others around them.
Yeah.
How are others feeling?
I do miss my pool. I do miss my mahjong. I miss being with everybody there and everything. So like, it's just not the same. I mean, I appreciate being on the Zoom, and because it's an opportunity to be able to see everybody. But it's not like being with everybody and being able to see everybody personally, even though when we get back, we'll probably be wearing masks and everything.
Is everybody still communicating with their PCP regarding any kind of, you know, comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, anybody may have? You guys keeping track of all of that?
Oh, yeah. I've had a couple of virtual visits. That's a trip. You know, you have your visit, and I said, yeah, oh gosh. But you have to do a lot of it yourself. I can do my blood pressure. I can check my oxygen saturation. Well, and I know that I'm a nurse, but even people that aren't in nursing, they can do all those things. They have all those gadgets you can use. And anyway, it's interesting, but I think in some way it feels better because you have their undivided attention. You know, it's
Right.
like they're not distracted by anything going on in the office. And
That's true.
Did we talk about gloves, wearing gloves?
We did not. Do you have a question specific about wearing gloves?
Well, I wear the gloves, like the vinyl gloves, right? And I started wearing them because my husband's aide, who we stopped because of the virus, left a whole box of them here. So I started wearing them and making him wear them too. But now I've run out of them, so I bought them, and they're very inexpensive. But is it a good idea to wear the gloves along with the mask?
Good question.
So I think that that's kind of personal preference. You know, I think some people like to wear those. I think that, you know, still, you know, if you're wearing those gloves when you, are you speaking about wearing the gloves when you go to the grocery store or pumping gas or anything like that? Yeah,
And what about
what you're talking about? So I think, you know, if you're wearing the gloves to go grocery shopping or pumping gas, that's definitely personal preference. Definitely don't use the gloves as a substitute for hand hygiene. I like to have one clean hand and one dirty hand when I go to the grocery store. That's how I do it. So I have one hand that I use to touch things, and then my other hand stays clean. I don't bring in a cell phone. I just bring in my card. So, you know, I think, you know, going to the grocery store is a brand new experience that I don't think we ever thought we would find ourselves in.
Something else to think about, when you go to the gas station, and you should always have a glove with you too, because you don't want to touch the handle, because you don't know how many other people have touched the handle. So like, I know when I have to go fill the car, and I have also, you know, like you, Alicia, I have like a rubber glove, and I put it on my right hand. That's the hand that I'll fuel the car with. So I put that rubber glove on, and I'll take the hose and I put it into the gas tank, and that way I'm not touching the gas pump or anything, and I'm just doing everything here with a rubber glove.
I have a family member coming from out of state to visit her family, another family. We don't know if she's ever had COVID or not, am I advised to keep away from her? Is there, I don't think you could go have a fast test on that, but I also want to ask about testing on that for the antibodies.
You want to ask about the antibodies? I didn't hear you.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about someone coming from out of state who may and may not have had COVID. So there isn't time for her to be tested. But am I advised to stay away from her just in case?
Okay. Well, this is kind of a layered question. So my first question is, where is she coming from?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Okay. So if she's coming from Washington, D.C., our guidance states that she should technically have to quarantine for 14 days when she crosses state lines from D.C. Yeah. So technically she should be quarantined for 14 days. That's the guidance that we have. You know, whether or not she's going to do that is another thing. I think anytime there's a new person coming into the mix, I would err on the side of caution. Is she staying with a family member of yours?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a possibility for you to see this family member in an outdoor space?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a safer way for you to socialize with that individual in an outdoor space, maintaining at least 6 feet, if not more, because if you're outside, it decreases the viral load because you know, there's more air circulation. So you know, my suggestion would be to, if you want to see this individual, this family member, would be to wear a face mask, have everybody wear the face mask, and be in an outdoor setting, social distance. Do not go inside. Unfortunately, hugs are kind of off the table.
Right. I think it's sometimes harder for people to realize. My granddaughter, another family member, my granddaughter was married last fall, and her husband is in the Guard, and he's been activated off. You know, they're still going different places right now. He's not saying too much about it, but anyhow, they wanted to come and visit me, and I told them I couldn't let him in. But I felt bad
Good for
about
you,
it.
Joanne. That's good for you.
I think they felt bad about it too. Yeah, but it's just one of those things, you know, and I think they probably grew to understand that my husband and I are old, and we don't want to put ourselves in any danger.
Yeah, and Joanne, also with these antibody tests, you know, honestly, DPH recognizes the PCR test, which is the nasal swab, as the gold standard for diagnostic testing for COVID. So what that means is that if somebody goes and gets an antibody test, and there's a couple different types of antibody tests out there. So there's the IgG and there's the IgM. And if you want, I can get into details with all of this. But basically, one of them tests for more of a acute coronavirus, and one of them would be more of like you may have had it in the past. So, however, if you test positive for any of these antibodies, it's not specific to COVID. So I think a lot of times when people obtain these tests, they think it gives them a passport to not wear a mask and to not social distance. And so what we're telling people is that it does not give them that free card, that you still need to maintain a social distance. And even if you obtain a PCR test and you test negative, that doesn't mean that you can go out to the grocery store and become infected. So you just really need to be vigilant and social distance and wear your mask at all times.
My husband and I were pretty sick the beginning of March. It was diagnosed as the flu on him. My doctor, when I called him, just put me on the Tamiflu. But anyhow, my husband's visiting nurse through the VA has taken blood from him last week to see if he has the antibodies. Is that right?
Okay.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
How long does it take? It takes a while to get any results. Of course, with the VA, I don't know when I'll hear, but.
No, the antibody testing is actually pretty quick.
Oh, okay.
The turnaround time for antibodies is, I mean, I've seen it come back within a day or two.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then I should call. I think maybe I can find out that way. The thing is, if I found out he has the antibodies or whatever, I would still have him wear a mask and whatever.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything. That's
No.
the thing. It's not going to change anything.
And I see Laurel. How is Laurel doing? Hi, Laurel.
Muted.
I don't think she's got her sound on. Well, it's good to see you anyway.
There you go. Can you hear me
There
now?
she is.
Yep.
Hi.
Yep. I'm doing okay. I'm icing my shoulder. Hope to
Good
be
for
back to
you.
work next week. We'll see.
One day at a time, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Yep.
all we can all do.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you're back and on
Thank you.
what? On my iPad. On the Zoom.
Yep. I'm on the mend.
Oh,
Good.
Thank you so much for going through that kind of case by case process with Joanne.
Thank you, Alyssa.
I'm sure a lot of people are
move it
it's summer, it's the holidays, and you know, the summer holidays,
All right,
people are
thank you,
coming in
Karen.
to visit, and you know, that's good guidance for making decisions about what to do and how to do it. And I encourage all of you to really speak your mind if you really have strong feelings about that, and make it clear to families what your expectations are, so that you know, you can have those accommodations met, and people can know ahead of time that you're expecting to meet outside, that you really want people to wear masks. And I encourage you all to speak up if you're feeling strongly about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions for Alyssa? We've had her for almost 45 minutes. Anyone else?
Someone's got their hand up there.
It's me again. I'm sorry to be such a drag, but
So stop.
I just want to ask you a question about getting tested. Now, I had the unusual request from my dentist that in order for me to go back to the dentist, he wanted me to have a COVID test. And I said, oh, really? Okay, well, let's see how we're going to do this. And of course, I'm a nurse, so I'm really suspicious here. But anyway, I did my best, and he was expecting me to ask my primary for the order. I have my blood drawn up at Gillette Stadium every month. Now, I have no problem up there. You go in, it's all completely no touch. You know, you just wear your mask, and the only one that touches me is the lady, the phlebotomist. So anyway, my doctor, my primary said, yeah, I can't order you a test. You're not eligible. Because God knows I'm not going to get a test and pay for it myself. If my dentist wants me to get it, my health insurance better pay for it. But I could not get a test. I even tried to get in touch with a freestanding CVS place, but at the time I called, they weren't doing them anymore. So what is your suggestion, or do you have a suggestion if someone is asking you to get a test and you can't, how do you work around that?
Joanne, can you, I'm going to have Carrie give you my email and I'll send you an email.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Because I actually, he ended up seeing me. Well, he didn't even see me. It was the hygienist that saw me. But you know, he didn't have to look into my mouth, but I know he's protecting his practice, and I get that. But I just thought that was unusual. I mean, they're all dressed up in all the proper equipment and everything. So I guess I was just annoyed that I couldn't understand why. Because he was saying I could go to a freestanding one. Well, the only freestanding one I could find to go to was up in Franklin Park, and you had to be part of the protest. And I wasn't. They say we're testing all the protesters. And I said, well, I'm not doing that.
Jeez.
Did you have to bring
But
a sign
anyway,
with you?
yeah, I know. I wasn't doing that. So he did let me.
I'll send you an email. I'll reach out to Carrie, get my email. I can send you an email with some testing sites. But that's a really weird request. I haven't heard that before.
No. Well, my dentist is weird, so that's okay.
I had, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I had a dentist appointment, and what they did was I signed I went over all my paperwork outside on their porch, and then they came out and got me, and I was the only one in the office, and they took my temperature before I went in. Yeah. That was the experience. And they wore masks and shields.
Yeah.
That's what the eye doctor does too, that I go to.
We're not really using temperature anymore as
No.
for one of the factors for COVID.
Oh.
They're not using that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what he did. Huh.
I don't know when you went to the dentist, but they took that off the list, I think, a week or two ago.
Okay, and that's about when I went, was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Really helpful information, and it's so good to see you. We miss you.
I miss you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hang in there. Your clients are very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.